So hello and welcome back to part 2 of my KvK breakdown and analysis for my recent heroic anthem. Part 1 was mainly focused on myself and my own stats, as well as KvK pairings, commander breakdowns, the amount of kills that I got. Now this part is where all the juicy spicy drama is going to come in, because my kingdom just went through a really back and forth and you could dare say unprofessional kind of KvK where there were betrayals and maybe diplomacy wasn't set up right. So this video is going to kind of cover all that. It's going to cover the whole story. We're going to have some features here. So I have the king of 2420 come in. He will introduce himself later. We had over an hour-long conversation, all right, about how all of this happened and his side of the story and how he felt about it. I've trimmed that down to about 20 minutes. I'm going to try to keep this video as short as possible, but if I were to guess, it's going to end up being over 30 minutes long. So if you have time in the day, maybe put some headphones in. If you're taking a drive, plug it into the aux, because this is going to be a long one. Alright, so just a really quick recap for those who didn't see my last video. We had Water Camp, which was us in 2638, 2707, 2420, and 2662. We had Fire Camp, which was 5, 7, 70, 69, and 63. We had Earth Camp, that was 21, 90, 50, and 84. And then finally we had Wind Camp, who we fought directly for most of the time, which was 27, 17, 62, 12, and 42. So this basically was a left versus right KvK. We thought it was evenly matched. The kills and the deaths and the power kind of added up. Just a few things to note: that Water Camp, our camp, had the most kills. That was because 2707 was really a powerhouse kingdom. And then Fire Camp had the most power. 2770 and 69 were pretty large kingdoms. Didn't have as much kill points as we did, but they were still very large kingdoms. So just to continue to go over the story of the KvK, the very first pass opening was a blast. We fought directly with Wind. It was over relatively quickly, but either way, I almost got my 30 million kills at that point. It was really fun. Fire also on top dominated quite a lot, but their match and their kind of stalemate ended after about 2 to 3 days, but overall they did end up winning the zone. We then hopped into the next zone, which obviously there was no fighting because we were allies there. We got our bastions, but there were altar fights. The altar fights were pretty one-sided for Water Camp. We won them all pretty significantly and convincingly. Thank you. Fire did the same. So now you're kind of seeing where this is going, all right? We have Fire, Water, both winning, both dominating, right? And we're kind of seeing where this goes. I will say that from my point of view, the Diplo was set to be different than just deaths and kill points. Again, the interview is going to dive into all of that, so I won't spoil too much of it here, but basically, whoever had the most kills and deaths did not determine the winner of the star at the end, so keep that in mind going forward. Next, we had the Kingsland fight. So Fire and Water pretty much washed over their enemies in Kingsland. Earth did a great job of kind of standing the ground, but Wind, no offense, but kind of a little offense, didn't really show up in a big way. They were pushed back pretty quickly. From there, we had Water and Fire kind of occupy Kingsland. I even sent out a little post on YouTube that said, "Oh, congratulations to us, to our allies. It was a great fight." I was all thinking that it was done. Of course, I'm not in Diplo, so I wasn't seeing all the kind of back and forth that was going on about the star. But long story short, Fire and Water ended up fighting for it. So without too much of a spoiler, we did end up winning that zone and that fight. But I have all the details here from this interview, and he's going to know it a lot more than me because obviously, like I said, I wasn't involved in the Diplo chat. So what I'm going to have here is clips from my KvK just on in the background so you guys don't get bored. And I'm literally just going to play the interview from start to finish with obviously some cuts and edits, explaining exactly what happened from our point of view. And I tried to cut it and to make it as least biased as possible. I really just want you guys to understand what happened. I'm not asking to be called the good guy. I'm not asking to be called the bad guy. And while there might be a little bit of bias that's thrown in there from either me in this video or through Lapis or Feed Me Archers, I think it's best that we just try to give you the straight facts of what happened. So without further ado, here we go.
Well, during our KvK, my main account name was Feed Me Archers. I'm the king of 2420. Most people know me by Zoro, though. That's the original name of my jump account. I've been king in 2420 since KvK 1. We've had the same council. It's been the same team the whole time. We were looking at ally potentials, and it really came down to fire or earth. And the problem started right at the beginning. At first, there was a sort of disagreement, if you will, about how to decide who gets the star at the end. Points based on kills and deaths, which is really common. However, looking at the matchup, we knew that Water Camp, it was a lopsided matchup from the start. Water Camp was ridiculously strong. There was no way around it. And we knew that we were going to win KvK, and we knew that we were going to win fast. Whoever we fought, we were going to win fast. And I know that sounds really arrogant. I do. But as we saw in the KvK, we were right.
Wow,
So
really?
we refused to ally based on data alone. Mostly because we knew we would win quickly. We wanted the star, and we didn't want to get penalized for winning quickly. That's really, it's a ABC seed heroic anthem KvK. There's only so much fighting you can possibly do without making up ways to die. Fire wanted to push for data. Eventually, we came to the conclusion that if we ended up helping them in Kingsland and we had a dominant performance start to finish and we just wiped the map, then Water would get the star. And if it turns out that Water had inflated stats and didn't perform relative to how we thought we would, then Fire would get the star. And Fire said, all right, that's fine. 2420 spent close to $600 on data for this KvK, only to get betrayed anyway.
Wow.
Which was really annoying to me. But starting at the beginning, and just a brief summary, Fire wanted it to be strictly data, wanted to do top 600 instead of top 300, which is also ridiculous.
Well, they also had more numbers, which makes
They
sense.
absolutely, they had like 5 or 6 build more power than we did, or more than their enemy of Earth Camp as well, and they still struggled. But outside of that, we agreed. We said, all right, we'll take an early sense of data. We'll do top 600. 2420 will pay for it. That way we know it's legitimate, and we'll go from there. And it really showed throughout the KvK. So what happened was Fire Camp told Wind Camp that everything was going to be strictly data-based, even though 2263, their Diplo lead, specifically agreed to other terms. Now, keep in mind, we haven't met anybody else in Fire Camp yet. 2769 hasn't introduced themselves. Nobody's introduced themselves. It was very unprofessional from the start. So Wind Camp told Fire, hey, we're going to skip Zone 5 so that you guys can take the star and just claim that you fought more because we hate 2707 so much. So from the start, Wind wasn't interested in winning. They were just interested in stealing rewards from Earth Camp and trying to make life miserable for Water Camp. They had fixed MGE during Zone 5.
Wow.
They had a 1 million point kill event limit during Zone 5 of our Season of Conquest KvK. 1 million points. And there's actually pictures of the King of 2512 threatening to kick and zero his own members for fighting in Zone 5 and going past the 1 mil point limit. You know, Wind trying to help Fire claim the star to ruin Water's KvK by not fighting in Zone 5. And then, furthermore, directly after Zone 5 is when my light concern went from absolute confidence we were going to have issues. Because what happened was, with 2420 volunteering to pay for the data, which we did, and run data after Zone 5.
And just to back up your claim here, can you do a real quick explanation of what the term like running data means or running data? Because I think a lot of people would be interested to know how you do it.
Absolutely. So we use ROK board for paid data pulls, and basically what that means is you pay for a service and a scan is done of your kingdom. And what a scan will give you is a spreadsheet of everybody in your kingdom's name, governor ID number, but more importantly, their power, their T4 kills, their T5 kills, and their deaths. And what this does is show you the performance from everybody in the KvK. You do one before the KvK starts, and then you do one after each zone fight. And the paid services are not cheap. As I mentioned, by the end of it, we were about $600 in. But it's good for people who take the game seriously and competitively to run fair KvKs. You want to be able to back up how hard you fought with data, and it's fun to track. It's part of what makes the game fun. We're all competitive people. However, part of our initial diplomatic discussions was that Zone 5 in Heroic Anthem doesn't win KvKs. Dying a lot doesn't mean you should get the star. Getting your farm zeroed doesn't mean you should get the star. And because we did a top 600, a lot of farms and alt accounts and accounts that don't really matter or have much fighting ability are included in the stats. I knew I was very concerned, and I was right to be concerned, because after the data was done, and as I mentioned before, after Wind opted to try to help Fire Camp win the star by refusing to fight us, of course Fire had done more fighting in Zone 5. And shortly after that, 2769 opted to send Kingdom Mail that they were on their way to get their 4th star, which was not in the agreement at all. As I've already explained, we were looking at the entire KvK, and if Water Camp helped Fire in Kingsland, then we deserve the star. We had diplomacy with all the camps, which is professional. That's what you do. You talk to everybody. You try to set up a fair KvK. And I already knew there was going to be problems later on. We had explored options, and I gave the heads up to Earth Camp that we think there's going to be a betrayal later on. And so I asked Earth Camp if they still had enough faith in their allies to even try. And Earth Camp said, "We understand the situation. This isn't ideal, but we understand that you want to fight. And we can assure you that we will do our absolute best in Kingsland so that everybody can still have fun."
Yeah, so let's get onto that train and walk through the Kingsland duration, like how long the fight lasted against Wind, which
we took their first pass within 90 minutes to about 3 hours total. We actually held the pass, and about 90 minutes in, they couldn't teleport in anymore.
After all that had happened, right? So we have the Kingsland fight. We win pretty handedly.
Well, actually, hold on. Sorry to interrupt you.
No,
There's one key thing that happened during Kingsland that we didn't mention yet. If you'll remember, Fire actually attacked us in Kingsland.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Fire didn't send Water any sort of build plan whatsoever. So naturally, wanting to win Kingsland as quickly as possible, Water built directly at Earth Camp in order to start fighting Earth Camp out of Kingsland alongside 2662, who went in a straight line. And Fire Camp was upset that Water Camp was helping versus Earth Camp. Flags were on fire, and Water Camp did what any normal camp would do. Look at your enemies, see where they are, and remove them from Kingsland. That is the entire objective of Kingsland. Now, after the fact, Fire went on this rambling rant about how Water should have just watched as they lost versus Earth. So Water was absolutely not going to let Earth Camp continue to build flags and continue to get teleport spots. Absolutely not. And so in response to us helping them, and them now realizing there's a chance they weren't going to get the star, they lit 2662's flags on fire where they were one flag wide. And what one flag wide means is that if your flag is destroyed, then basically everybody in your kingdom can get zeroed. So the unprofessionalism has just been through and through.
Just to confirm here, because I've got this screenshot, which basically said that 69 ended up reaching out to Earth and Wind and said, Water's betraying us. We should all ally against them, and then Fire Camp, meaning we, will hold the star, or hold Zig, and we will kick Water out of Kingsland. So that happened right after the conclusion of the fighting. And correct me if I'm wrong, but they reached out to them first, and that's what set off the Civil War.
Correct. That is absolutely what happened. I asked Earth if they were even going to bother with the rest of the KvK because it was turning into a dramatic mess. Because I wanted to know if I should tell my kingdom to even bother spending on tech. If Earth Camp was going to opt to not fight, Wind Camp was busy farming MGE, and Fire Camp was living in this delusional world, what's the point? So Fire, absolutely, after we won Kingsland and realized that there was going to be contention for the star, we made an offer to Fire for every single reward besides the star. And we gave them 12 hours to talk about it. And they took those 12 hours to contact Earth Camp and Wind Camp to try to make a 3-camp coalition to kick Water out of Kingsland. They didn't refuse our original offer. They didn't refuse a duel. They just cut off contact and tried to make a 3-camp coalition to kick us out of Kingsland. So we made them 2 offers. Everything besides the star, or the ability to duel for the star, even though we had earned it based on our original agreement by helping them in Kingsland. And their response to that wasn't to, get back to us, refuse. Their response to that was to try to make a 3-group coalition against Water Camp. Earth Camp instantly was insulted. They were borderline insulted that Fire was trying to undermine everybody's goal, or everybody else's goal, of a fair, honest, and professional KvK. On top of that, it's important to note that last KvK for Fire Camp 2263 got the star with subpar data. They had less kills, less deaths, overall fought much less than their allies 1821, and strong-armed 1821 into giving them the star. So here they are trying to do the same thing, because it turns out after we ran data, they had less kills and deaths anyway. Earth was so sick of their drama and so sick of their allies in Wind Camp that they said, you know what? Hey, Water Camp, this is what's going on. Your allies are trying to betray you. Whatever happens here, we will stay neutral. This is important because it all plays into each other. We just want you to know that your allies are trying to betray you. Yeah. And we said, thank you. We'll take it from here. And now what happened next was Wind Camp, Earth Camp's original allies, teamed up with Fire and decided to try to 2v1 Water since Earth Camp was staying neutral and professional. However, right after that, Water Camp was able to start fighting Fire Camp. Wind Camp, realizing they weren't going to get into Kingsland, opted to then turn on their original allies in Earth Camp, take a pass 7, and start trying to zero everybody. That is when Earth Camp hit their breaking point. And that's when Earth Camp started fighting Wind Camp, as well as starting to build into Kingsland in communication with Water Camp to help set the KvK straight. And that's how it went from Fire proposing a 3v1 versus Water to now an equal 2v2. And I also think Fire wanted to take advantage of Earth's professionalism and the fact that Earth would stay out of it, that they thought they could win. It wasn't even close. So here's the thing, that after we pushed them out of Kingsland, they then continued to fight all the way until we flagged to their RCF. While they will argue it was a matter of troops and resources and speed, it wasn't. Because if the fighting was on equal footing, it would have taken us much longer to push them out of Kingsland. And furthermore, they wouldn't have been able to defend all the way to their RCF. There is a report of me rallying their Pass 8, where we lost 730,000 units and took 730,000 wounded units. They had 2.7 million units die and another 2.7 million units wounded. So they had troops. I know they had troops because I killed them. I understand how somebody might be inclined to believe that they were depleted. However, their behavior after we kicked them out of Kingsland, combined with the fact that it's heroic anthem, which means that because of the KvK format, there's at most 9 days of fighting total. When we were doing pre-KvK Diplo, all I heard from Fire was, our past 2 or 3 KvKs have been cakewalks. They've been too easy. We're looking for a real fight. We're bored. So I understand why some people might believe that they were out of troops and resources and everything, but they weren't. And the data proves that because we ended up paying for data after the KvK as well. And Water Camp had more kills, more T4 kills, more T5 kills, and more deads. And what's really so unprofessional is that Fire tried to push out data that they quote unquote ran with their bot, and they literally just shaved 1 billion T4 kills off of our total. They shaved some T5 kills off of our total and tried to make it look like they had better data. But like I said, we paid for ROK board, which is objective. It's a paid service, that somebody else performs. Somebody who couldn't care less about our KvK. And the ROK board data shows clearly that Water Camp outperformed Fire Camp. So
yeah, and so we'll just go through this data real quick, and then we can wrap it up. But you have sent me a screenshot here of Fire's T4 and T5 kills and Water T4 and T5 kills. Some of those are negative. Can you just explain exactly what this means for someone who doesn't deal with data too often?
Yeah, absolutely. Naturally, over the course of KvK, you're going to have some people migrate out of your kingdom. It's just what happens. And so when those individuals migrate out of their kingdom, whether it's usually, call it 5, 10, maybe even 15 people if your kingdom is having problems, their total kills are then not included in the end data pulls done by the paid service. So basically what that means is that those kingdoms with negative statistics, they couldn't even make up for the kills and deads of people who left during their KvK.
Yeah, which is it's like you got to do
embarrassing.
Yeah, you got to do almost nothing, right? I mean, that's tough.
That it is tough, and it's a little embarrassing. I wish those kingdoms the best of luck in their future. I hope they're able to get the experience they need to have better Diplo and better experiences for their players. But that being said, 2707 had a group of 15 to 20 people migrate out of their kingdom as well. So it wasn't just one side that had people migrate out. Everybody has people who migrate out. And Water Camp was positive by leaps and bounds across the board. Everybody was pulling down tens of billions of kill points positive even after you take away the migrations out. And 2420 had one of their biggest kill point players leave the kingdom during the KvK. And that counted against us. And our data was still showing that we pulled down tens of billions of kill points positive even after these big kill point players left. If you have like 2 or 2.5 kingdoms outperforming all of Fire Camp as it is, their arguments are just underhanded, unprofessional, and they had no intention of honoring whatever deal was made from the start of the KvK to the end of the KvK. Because we did everything we could to really make sure everybody in the KvK had a positive fighting experience, and the winners got to improve their accounts, and those who unfortunately didn't quite make it to the Kingsland were still able to have a good time.
Okay, well, that wraps it up. And now it's dark out and it's nighttime, and I'm back to the yellow, room and lighting. So I hope you enjoyed his point of view, and quite frankly, Water Camp's point of view. Like I said, that was supposed to be as truthful and unbiased as possible. We really do feel like Water was kind of looked at poorly in the grand scheme of things and maybe the public eye of Rise of Kingdom, so I hope this kind of generalized it and summed it up for everybody who maybe wasn't on the inside, and that we really were trying just to make it as fair as a KvK as possible. And obviously, big thanks to Feed Me Archers. I did want to say that because he did come on and do this, that I was going to give him a little bit of time to advertise his kingdom. So without further ado, here it is.
Yeah, absolutely. You can contact me personally. I'm the king on Discord. My Discord name is How Are You Now, hashtag 4535. You can also PM me in game on my main account, Latte Lapis. I'll be in VG as R4 King. We're generally looking for people who put the kingdom first, who want to win KvKs, and generally speaking, we're looking for at least 2 or 3, preferably 5 SOC ready marches with 10x kill points compared to power. But we're open to talking to people. It takes flag building, flag filling, field, rally, garrison. It takes everything to win KvKs. So if you want to come win KvKs and you want to know you'll have a professional experience, please don't hesitate to reach out.
And with that out of the way, we are officially finished. So thank you guys for sticking around. I'm sorry if the quality of the stream wasn't that great. I'm still getting used to all the settings and all that stuff. And I have recently fixed that, so this will be the last, hopefully the last video that's kind of subpar quality. It's going to be going up from here. Again, I know that you might have also heard my roommate screaming in the background throughout some of that interview. Unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about that. I live in an apartment still with some pretty thin walls. I'm going to be moving in about 2 months and going to be upgrading, but for now, yeah, we just kind of have to deal with it, and I didn't want to make him come back on here and re-record the whole interview. So again, thank you guys for sticking around. Subscribe if you want some more. We're actually just got our first KvK pop, so we're not going to be accepting this one, but we are going to be going into the next one, either the next one or 2 more down. So a new KvK is coming, more content's coming, hopefully higher quality streams and YouTube videos, and all in all, thank you guys for sticking around. So I'll see you in the next one. Peace.